The faint hum of Ellie Nguyen's diagnostic scanner echoed through the cavernous engine room of the Cauldron H-117. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she crawled deeper into the abandoned cruiser's innards, her headlamp casting long shadows across corroded pipes and dormant control panels. The ship had been declared scrap, a once powerful vessel of the Red Moon fleet, now relegated to the junkyard orbits of asteroid belt JX-9. "Come on, you beautiful disaster," Ellie whispered, patting the cold metal hull. "Show me what you're hiding." Most mechanics called her crazy for taking this contract. The Cauldron ships were notoriously complex, their technology far beyond human engineering principles. But Ellie "Spark" Nguyen hadn't earned her nickname by backing down from challenges. At 28, she'd already salvaged 3 ships that veteran mechanics had abandoned. This one was different. The H-117 was her biggest gamble yet. Her comm unit crackled. "Spark, you still breathing in that death trap?" Jax Morrow's voice carried the casual confidence of someone safely aboard a functioning ship. "Barely," Ellie replied, wiping dust from a partially melted control panel. "The air filtration's working at minimum capacity, but I've got about 6 hours of backup oxygen if things go sideways." "Which they always do with you," Jax chuckled. "Any sign of what made the previous owner's abandoned ship?" Ellie traced her gloved fingers along a series of unusual etchings beneath a cluster of burned-out monitors. "Nothing obvious. Hull's intact. No radiation beyond normal background levels. Just looks like they gave up on her." "Cauldrons don't give up on anything," Jax replied, his voice dropping an octave. "Whatever made them leave that ship, it wasn't mechanical failure." Ellie ignored the warning in his tone. She needed this job, needed the credits. Yes, but more than that, she needed the reputation boost. Independent mechanics like her were dying out, crushed between corporate repair fleets and automated drone systems. Each successful restoration was her middle finger to an industry trying to erase people like her. "Initiating auxiliary reactor test," she announced. More for her own benefit than Jax's. The reactor chamber was a masterpiece of alien engineering, a spherical room with concentric rings of what appeared to be both mechanical and biological components. She'd spent 3 days just figuring out where to plug in her equipment. Her diagnostic pad displayed a series of green indicators as the power began flowing through long dormant systems. A smile crept across her face. "See nothing to..." The lights died. Her diagnostic pad went black. For 2 terrifying seconds, even her headlamp failed, plunging her into absolute darkness. Then, as suddenly as they'd failed, the lights returned, not the warm emergency lighting she'd rigged, but a cold, blue-white illumination emanating from previously invisible strips along the walls. A series of symbols began scrolling across every surface floor. Walls, ceiling moving too quickly for her translation software to process. "Spark, Spark." Jax's voice was barely audible through increasing static. "What's happening in there?" Ellie's heart hammered in her chest as she watched sealed panels throughout the engine room hiss open, revealing complex machinery that hadn't appeared on any of her scans. "I think I just woke something up," she whispered. Without warning, blast doors slammed shut, sealing her inside the reactor chamber. A faint hissing sound filled the air. "Jax," she shouted into her comm. "I'm sealed in the main reactor. Something's..." She sniffed the air, detecting a faint metallic tang. "Something's releasing gas into the chamber." Only static answered her. Ellie frantically dug through her tool belt, pulling out her multi-spectrum scanner. The air showed increasing concentrations of an unknown compound, not immediately toxic according to her readouts, but her lungs burned slightly with each breath. A holographic interface suddenly materialized in the center of the room, displaying what appeared to be a countdown in Cauldron numerals. "Oh, that's never good," she muttered, instinctively backing away. The countdown was accelerating. Ellie had exactly 12 minutes before. Whatever was going to happen, happened. For the first critical minute, Ellie simply breathed. Panic was a mechanic's worst enemy, especially when trapped in an alien engine room with potentially hostile systems activating around you. Her instructors at the Technical Academy had drilled that into her when everything goes wrong. Breathe first, think second, act third. The mysterious gas had stabilized at a concentration that made her lightheaded, but still functional. The holographic countdown continued its relentless progress, now showing approximately 11 minutes remaining. Okay, spark, think. She scanned the chamber, looking for anything she could use. The newly revealed machinery pulsed with an internal light, creating a hypnotic pattern that she forced herself to ignore. Her eyes locked onto a section of wall where the scrolling symbols seemed to slow momentarily. Pulling her spectral analyzer from her belt, she adjusted it to detect the full light spectrum and pointed it at the wall. "Hello, what's this?" she murmured. Under ultraviolet light, a different set of markings became visible, etched deeply into the metal and arranged in a circular pattern. Unlike the chaotic stream of data flooding the other surfaces, these markings were static, almost like a lock, she whispered. "It's a damn security lock." Working quickly, Ellie interfaced her pad with the analyzer, running the captured images through her translation software. The Cauldron language was notoriously difficult, not just in its written form, but in its contextual logic. What appeared to be simple instructions could actually be complex philosophical statements, depending on interpretation. After 2 frustrating minutes of failed attempts, a partial translation emerged. Verification sequence required prove worthy of the vessel's heart. Great, a test. Ellie glanced at the countdown. 8 minutes, 40 seconds. She examined the circular pattern more carefully. It wasn't just symbols, it was a map of sorts, showing what appeared to be energy flows. If she understood correctly, the pattern represented the optimal energy distribution for the reactor's startup sequence. Ellie had studied Cauldron engineering principles during her brief stint at the Interspecies Technical Exchange. She'd dropped out after 2 semesters when the tuition became unaffordable, but she'd absorbed enough to recognize the fundamentals. "The heart wants harmony," she muttered, recalling her instructor's words about Cauldron technology. Balance, not force. Using her diagnostic tools, she began redirecting the auxiliary power she'd initially provided, attempting to match the pattern displayed in the hidden markings. Each adjustment caused subtle changes in the humming sound emanating from the reactor core. The countdown reached 6 minutes. A sharp pain lanced through her head, and Ellie realized the gas was affecting her more than she'd initially thought. Her vision blurred momentarily, but she forced herself to continue. Come on," she urged, as her fingers flew across her diagnostic pad, making minute adjustments to power distribution. A melodic tone suddenly rang out, and a section of the circular lock illuminated with a satisfying green glow. 1 segment complete, but based on the pattern, she needed to unlock at least 3 more. 5 minutes remaining. The next segment was more complex, requiring her to balance thermal regulation with power input. Sweat dripped into her eyes as she worked, each breath becoming more labored in the strange atmosphere. Another tone, another green segment. 4 minutes. The third segment refused to cooperate. Ellie's adjustments seemed logical, following the pattern she'd identified, but something was missing. The segment remained stubbornly red. "What am I missing?" she hissed through gritted teeth, scanning the pattern again. Her eyes widened as realization struck. It's not just about the energy flow, it's about timing. The Cauldron system required not only the correct distribution, but a specific sequence of adjustments. She quickly retraced her steps, implementing the changes in a rhythmic pattern that matched the pulsing lights of the machinery around her. A third harmonic tone rang out. 3 segments complete. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. The final segment was unlike the others. Instead of technical symbols, it displayed what appeared to be organic patterns, almost like neural pathways. Ellie frowned. What the hell? A flicker of movement caught her eye. In a corner of the chamber, a previously unnoticed panel had opened, revealing what looked like an ancient data module. The design was unmistakably Cauldron, but it appeared older, almost primitive compared to the sleek technology surrounding it. 1 minute, 45 seconds. Ellie lunged for the module, nearly slipping on the smooth floor in her haste. The device was heavy, with connection ports unlike anything she'd seen before. Working purely on instinct, she examined her own equipment, looking for any possible way to interface with the alien technology. Come on, think, she urged herself, her vision swimming. The gas was definitely affecting her cognitive functions now. 1 minute. In desperation, she pulled apart her diagnostic pad, exposing its core components. Using her multi-tool, she rapidly fashioned a makeshift adapter between her equipment and the ancient module. Please work, she chanted as she connected them. Immediately, her modified pad lit up with cascading data. The module was an AI core, a primitive version by current Cauldron standards, but sophisticated enough to have maintained basic functions during the ship's abandonment. 45 seconds. Ellie frantically scanned the incoming data, looking for anything that might help her complete the final segment of the lock. Most of the information was corrupted, or in formats her software couldn't process, but she managed to extract fragments of what appeared to be authentication protocols. 30 seconds. With trembling hands, she transferred the authentication sequences to her spectral analyzer and pointed it at the final segment of the lock. The symbols remained stubbornly unchanged. 20 seconds. What am I missing? She shouted, her voice echoing in the chamber. The answer came in a sudden, crystal-clear memory of her Cauldron engineering instructor. Their technology doesn't just recognize credentials, it recognizes intent. 10 seconds. Ellie placed her hand directly on the final segment, took a deep breath of the strange gas, and spoke in the fragmentary Cauldron she remembered from her studies. I seek not to conquer, but to restore. 5 seconds. Nothing happened. 4, 3. Please, she whispered, closing her eyes. 2, 1. A series of harmonic tones more complex and beautiful than the previous ones filled the chamber. Ellie opened her eyes to see all 4 segments of the lock glowing green, the symbols now flowing in synchronous patterns. The countdown froze at 0. The hissing stopped. For several tense moments, nothing happened. Then, with a sound like a massive intake of breath, the chamber's ventilation systems activated, rapidly clearing the strange gas. The pressure equalized with a pop that made her ears ache. Ellie collapsed to her knees, gulping in the fresher air. Did I pass? She asked the empty room. As if in response, the holographic display in the center of the chamber shifted, forming what appeared to be a 3-dimensional model of the ship. Sections illuminated one by one: life support, navigation, weapon systems, engines all coming online in a carefully orchestrated sequence. A voice spoke not in Cauldron, but in heavily accented standard. First trial completed. Candidate has demonstrated technical aptitude and appropriate intent. Ellie stared at the hologram. What are you? This vessel's supervisory intelligence, the voice replied. Designation Guardian of the H-117 Emergence. You're an AI, Ellie said, slowly rising to her feet. But the record said this ship was just a cruiser, not an AI-equipped vessel. Records were intentionally falsified. This vessel serves a purpose beyond conventional military operations. The blast doors that had trapped her in the reactor chamber hissed open. Proceed to Navigation Center for second trial, the voice instructed. You have 30 minutes before automatic defense systems reactivate. Ellie's comm unit suddenly crackled back to life. Spark. Do you copy? I've been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. I'm here, Jax, she replied, relief washing over her. The situation's complicated. I'm picking up massive power signatures from that ship. Whatever you did, woke up every system on board. Cauldron patrol beacons are lighting up all over the sector. They know something's happening with their abandoned vessel. Ellie looked at the holographic display, now showing a complete schematic of the fully activated ship. I think abandoned might not be the right word. More like dormant, waiting. Waiting for what? She picked up her tools, eyes fixed on the path to the navigation center. Apparently, for someone crazy enough to try waking it up. I've got more work to do. Jax, stand by. The corridors of the H-117 were transforming before Ellie's eyes. What had been dark, dusty passageways hours ago now hummed with energy. Dormant systems awakened as she passed, lighting her way toward the navigation center with an eerie intelligence. Your vital signs indicate elevated stress and minor respiratory irritation. The ship's AI voice commented through newly activated comm systems. The verification gas should not have lasting effects. Verification gas. Ellie coughed. Is that what you call potentially lethal atmospheric tampering? The compound is harmless to compatible physiology. Your survival confirms basic compatibility. Lucky me, she muttered. Her comm unit buzzed again. Spark. I'm picking up transmissions in Cauldron military frequencies, Jax reported, his voice tense. They're scrambling response vessels. Whatever you've awakened, they want it back or destroyed. Ellie quickened her pace. How long do I have? At current speeds, maybe 4 hours before the first interceptors arrive. The ship's AI interjected, incorrect. Cauldron response protocols indicate rapid deployment vessels will arrive in approximately 2 hours, 17 minutes. Who's that? Jax demanded. The ship, Ellie explained. It has an AI, a very chatty one. A ship AI that speaks standard. That's unusual for Cauldron tech. Ellie reached a junction where 3 corridors met. The ship's lighting guided her toward the rightmost path. This whole ship is unusual. I don't think it was ever supposed to end up in a scrapyard. She finally reached the navigation center, a spacious, semicircular room dominated by a massive view screen currently displaying the asteroid field surrounding the vessel. Workstations arranged in concentric rings faced the screen, their surfaces coming alive with controls as she entered. Second trial commences, announced the AI. Pressure regulation systems compromised. Restore functionality, or face decompression in 15 minutes. Alarms blared, and warning lights flashed throughout the chamber. A status display showed rapidly declining pressure levels in multiple ship sections. Are you kidding me? Ellie shouted. I just fixed one life-threatening problem. Cauldron verification protocols require multiple demonstrations of competence. The AI replied calmly. Countdown initiated. 15 minutes to prevent the ship from effectively killing her. Ellie dropped her tool bag and rushed to the central engineering station. The pressure regulation systems were indeed failing, not from age or damage, but from what appeared to be deliberate sabotage. The system's been programmed to fail, she realized. This isn't a repair job, it's a puzzle. The main atmospheric controls responded to her touch, bringing up diagrams of the ship's life support network. The problem was immediately apparent. The primary distribution nodes were locked in a feedback loop, each one trying to compensate for the other's erratic behavior. Jax, I need a favor, she said into her comm. Contact Sue-Rel at the Xenotech repository. I need everything they have on Cauldron pressure regulation systems, specifically recursive feedback management. Sue-Rel, the 4-armed grump who banned you from the repository last year after you corrected their Antarian engine schematics. That's the one, Ellie confirmed, fingers flying over the controls as she tried to isolate individual nodes from the cascade failure. Tell them it's emergency access under Interspecies Salvage Code 47B. On it. 12 minutes remaining. Ellie managed to stabilize 2 of the 8 distribution nodes, but the others continued their death spiral. Each time she corrected one parameter, the system would introduce new variables, staying one step ahead of her fixes. This isn't just a test of technical skill, she realized. It's testing adaptation. She switched tactics, pulling up the system's underlying code structure. If she couldn't solve the problem through conventional means, perhaps she could change the rules entirely. 9 minutes. Spark, I've got Sue-Rel, Jax announced. Patching them through now. A gravelly voice filled her comm. Nguyen, heard you were scavenging again. What mess have you created this time? Good to hear your voice, too. Tsu, Ellie replied, never taking her eyes off the code scrolling before her. I need the override sequences for Cauldron atmospheric regulators. Series H or above. A dismissive snort. Those are classified under interspecies technical exchange protocols. Even if I had them. Tsu, I've got about 8 minutes before this ship turns me into a very interesting wall decoration. I don't have time for bureaucratic nonsense. A pause. What ship model? Cauldron, H117. Another pause. Longer this time. That's impossible. The H117 was a myth, a prototype that never made it past the design phase. Ellie glanced around the very real navigation center. Well, I'm standing in the very non-mythical navigation center right now, and its very real atmospheric systems are about to kill me. 6 minutes. The legend said the H117 contained prototype systems that could adapt to the operator. Sue-Rel said slowly. Standard overrides won't work. The system is learning from your attempts to fix it. So what do I do? Stop trying to fix it according to standard protocols. The Cauldron philosophy views pressure not as a static state, but as a conversation between vessel and space. You need to introduce a third voice into that conversation. Ellie frowned. What does that even mean? 5 minutes. No response. Tsutsurel. Jax's voice returned. Lost the connection. Some kind of interference from the ship itself. Ellie slammed her fist against the console in frustration. Introduce a third voice. What kind of mystic garbage is that? The pressure continued dropping. Warning indicators showed critical levels in the outer sections of the ship, with the navigation center soon to follow. 4 minutes. She stared at the ship schematic, trying to make sense of Sue-Rel's cryptic advice. The Cauldrons viewed pressure as a conversation ship and space in dialogue. The third voice, she whispered. It's not another set of commands. It's me. In a flash of inspiration, Ellie pulled up the environmental controls for her current location. Instead of fighting the system's algorithms, she began adjusting the local settings to create a deliberate pattern, increasing and decreasing temperature, humidity, and oxygen levels in a rhythmic sequence. 3 minutes. The ship's AI spoke. Anomalous environmental fluctuations detected in navigation center. Purpose unclear. I'm having a conversation, Ellie replied, continuing her pattern of adjustments. You speak in system commands. Space speaks in vacuum and pressure. I'm speaking in environmental changes. She increased the complexity of her pattern, incorporating elements of music theory, a melody expressed through atmospheric conditions. The feedback loops in the system began to respond, slowly synchronizing with her input. 2 minutes. One by one, the distribution nodes stabilized, falling into harmony with her improvised atmospheric composition. The pressure decline slowed, then stopped altogether. Unusual approach detected, the AI noted. Analyzing effectiveness. 1 minute. The final nodes aligned with her pattern. Throughout the ship, pressure levels returned to normal parameters, the warning lights fading to a steady green. Pressure regulation system stabilized, the AI announced. Methodology unprecedented in Cauldron technical records. Ellie collapsed into the captain's chair, exhaustion washing over her. That's me. Unprecedented. Second trial completed successfully. Candidate has demonstrated adaptive problem-solving and intuitive understanding of ship systems. Great, Ellie sighed. Let me guess there's a third trial. Correct. Final verification requires integration with ship's command protocols. Proceed to captain's quarters. Jax's voice crackled through her comm. Spark, whatever you did, it worked. But we've got another problem. The Cauldron response fleet has accelerated. They'll be here in less than an hour. Ellie glanced at the main view screen, which now displayed approaching Cauldron vessels, sleek, predatory shapes against the starfield. Why are they so interested in an abandoned ship? This vessel is designated as the Keeper of Secrets, the AI explained. Its primary function is to preserve Cauldron technological achievements deemed too advanced for general deployment. You're a prototype vault, Ellie realized. A library ship disguised as a standard cruiser. Correct. Unauthorized activation has triggered maximum response protocols. The approaching vessels are authorized to destroy this ship rather than permit its capture by non-Cauldron entities. Ellie stood up, determination replacing exhaustion. Then, we'd better complete that third trial quickly. Where are the captain's quarters? The captain's quarters were nothing like Ellie had expected. Instead of the austere, functional space typical of military vessels, she entered what appeared to be a meditation chamber. The circular room featured a shallow pool of mercury-like liquid at its center, surrounded by cushioned platforms positioned at regular intervals. No obvious technology was visible. No control panels, no monitors, no conventional interfaces of any kind. Final trial requires neural synchronization, the AI announced. Cauldron command protocols operate through direct mental interface. Ellie stared at the silvery pool. You want me to... stick my head in that? Physical contact with the synchronization medium is necessary. The process will temporarily link your neural patterns with ship systems. That sounds incredibly dangerous, she said, eyeing the liquid warily. And possibly fatal. Risk is inherent in all significant advancement, the AI replied. Previous trials have confirmed basic compatibility. Probability of successful synchronization is approximately 62%. And the other 38%? Various negative outcomes, including synaptic disruption, personality fragmentation, or cerebral hemorrhage. Perfect, Ellie muttered. Her comm unit buzzed. Spark, those Cauldron ships are 30 minutes out, Jax reported. Whatever you're planning to do it fast. Ellie knelt beside the pool, studying her reflection in the strange liquid. This ship is worth a fortune, Jax. More than that, it's a technological treasure trove. If I can establish command authority before the Cauldrons arrive, salvage rights laws protect my claim. No salvage is worth your brain, Spark. She smiled grimly. My brain hasn't done me many favors lately. Maybe it needs an upgrade. Before she could second-guess herself, Ellie plunged her hand into the liquid. It was cool to the touch, with a consistency somewhere between water and oil. The surface tension broke around her wrist, enveloping her hand in a gentle, pulsing grip. Immediately, a tingling sensation raced up her arm, spreading across her shoulder and neck before blooming inside her skull. Colors she had no names for flashed behind her eyelids. Sounds beyond hearing vibrated through her bones. Neural contact established? The AI's voice seemed to come from inside her own mind now. Beginning compatibility assessment. Ellie gasped as information flooded her consciousness. Ship schematics, crew protocols, weapons capabilities, navigation data more than she could possibly process. The knowledge wasn't being transferred to her. Rather, she was being connected to it, like a new terminal added to an existing network. Too much, she managed to say, her free hand clutching at her temple. Can't process it all. Calibrating information flow, the AI responded. Human neural architecture differs significantly from Cauldron parameters. The flood of data receded to a manageable stream. Ellie's breathing steadied, as she began to make sense of the connection forming between her mind and the ship's systems. Commencing command protocol verification, the AI announced. Candidate must navigate the paths of purpose to establish authority. The physical world faded around her. Ellie found herself standing in what appeared to be a vast, crystalline structure, a mental representation of the ship's command hierarchy. Pathways of light stretched in all directions, intersecting at nodes of concentrated energy. Choose your path, the AI instructed. But be warned, intention shapes reality here. False purpose leads to rejection. Ellie studied the branching pathways. Each seemed to represent a different approach to command. Some pulsed with aggressive energy. Others flowed with calm precision. Still, others flickered with creative potential. "What am I looking for?" she asked. "The path that resonates with your true purpose for this vessel." Why had she come to this ship in the first place? For salvage value? Yes. For professional reputation? Certainly. But beneath those motivations, "I want to restore what others abandoned," she realized. To find value where others saw only waste. A previously dim pathway began to glow more brightly. Ellie moved toward it, feeling a resonance between the energy of the path and her own thoughts. As she stepped onto the pathway, it solidified beneath her feet. Images flashed through her mind, the ship as it had been in its prime, the technologies it contained, the potential future it represented. The path led her to a central chamber within the mental construct. Here, a sphere of swirling energy pulsed in rhythmic patterns. "The command core awaits your final verification," the AI said. "To claim authority over this vessel, you must synchronize your neural patterns with the core's frequency." "How do I do that?" "Heart rate, brainwave patterns, and emotional state must align with the ship's fundamental operational parameters. The vessel responds to confidence, purpose, and harmony." Ellie closed her eyes within the mental construct, focusing on controlling her actual physical responses. She steadied her breathing, calmed her racing heart, and channeled her determination into a clear, singular purpose revival. The core's pulsing gradually shifted, its rhythm aligning with her heartbeat. The energy patterns began to mirror her brainwave activity. "Synchronization at 38%, the AI reported. "Continuing." Ellie deepened her focus, drawing on memories of previous restorations, the satisfaction of breathing life back into abandoned machinery, the joy of revealing hidden potential. These emotions flowed from her into the command core. "Synchronization at 76%. A sudden jolt of pain lanced through her consciousness as the core seemed to resist complete alignment. Ellie gasped, nearly losing her connection. "Warning, cauldron genetic markers absent," the AI announced. "Full command authorization requires 100% synchronization. Current maximum potential for human neural structure, 89%. "That's not fair," Ellie protested. "I've passed your trials. I've proven myself. Genetic verification is a fundamental safety protocol. Without cauldron biology, full integration is impossible." Ellie felt the connection beginning to fade, her mind being gently but firmly pushed out of the command structure. Desperation surged through her. "Wait!" she shouted into the mental void. "You've been monitoring me since I came aboard. You've tested my skills, my adaptability, my intentions. You know I'm not here to steal or destroy, I'm here to restore." The withdrawal paused. "The ship has been abandoned by its creators," she continued. "Left to decay in a scrapyard. Whatever purpose it was built for, that purpose is lost if it's destroyed. I offer an alternative preservation through adaptation." The command core's rhythm changed subtly. "Neural synchronization holding at 89%, the AI reported. "Insufficient for standard command protocols." "Then change the protocols," Ellie challenged. "You're an adaptive system. You've been assessing me, learning from me. If you can't bend your rules to accommodate reality, what good is all that artificial intelligence?" For several moments, nothing happened. Then, the core began to pulse with a new pattern, neither fully aligned with Ellie's, nor adhering to its original frequency. But something new, a hybrid rhythm. Creating modified command protocol, the AI announced. Establishing symbiotic neural interface ship systems will compensate for human limitations. Human creativity will supplement logical processes. The energy of the command core expanded, enveloping Ellie in a cocoon of light. Knowledge flowed between them, not overwhelming her this time, but integrating with her understanding, reshaping itself to fit her mind's architecture. Synchronization stabilizing at 97%, the AI reported. Acceptable parameters achieved. Temporary command authority granted to Ellie Spark, Nguyen, for a probationary period of 1 standard year. The mental construct dissolved, and Ellie found herself back in the captain's quarters, her hand still immersed in the silvery liquid. As she withdrew it, the substance clung momentarily to her skin before releasing her, leaving no residue. "Did it work?" she asked aloud, her voice hoarse. In response, the room transformed. Walls that had appeared solid revealed embedded displays showing ship status, approaching cauldron vessels, and defensive capabilities. The cushioned platforms rose slightly, forming comfortable seating with integrated controls that responded to her proximity. Command interface reconfigured for human operation, the AI confirmed. All ship systems now accessible. Ellie's comm unit crackled. "Spark, do you copy? The Cauldron fleet is 20 minutes out, and they're charging weapons." She smiled, feeling the ship's systems like extensions of her own body, not directly controlled by thought, but intuitively responsive to her intentions. "I copy, Jax, and I think we're about to surprise some very angry aliens." The navigation center hummed with energy as Ellie settled into the captain's chair, now reconfigured to accommodate human physiology. Displays materialized around her, showing the approaching Cauldron vessels, 5 sleek interceptors arranged in attack formation. "They're hailing us," Jax reported through the comm. "Standard Cauldron military frequencies." "Put them through," Ellie instructed, straightening her posture despite her exhaustion. The main view screen flickered, revealing a Cauldron commander tall, with iridescent scales that shifted color with each movement, and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. The alien's expression was unreadable to human perception, but the rigid posture conveyed clear hostility. "Unauthorized entity," the commander began in accented standard. "You have illegally accessed a restricted Cauldron vessel. Power down all systems immediately and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction." Ellie felt a momentary flicker of doubt. She was, after all, a salvage mechanic facing down a military commander with 4 heavily armed ships. But the neural link with the H-117 pulsed reassuringly in the back of her mind. "This is Ellie Nguyen, acting commander of the vessel formerly designated H-117 Emergence," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "I've completed the verification trials and established temporary command authority under the ship's own protocols." The Cauldron's scales flashed deep crimson. "Impossible! Human neural architecture cannot interface with Cauldron command systems." "And yet, here we are." Ellie gestured around the fully activated bridge. "Your abandoned vessel has accepted my authority, under Interspecies Salvage Code, Section 12, Paragraph 7. A vessel formerly abandoned in neutral space may be claimed by any entity capable of restoring and commanding it." "That vessel was never abandoned," the commander hissed. "It was seated, placed in calculated dormancy, until worthy recovery was possible." Ellie raised an eyebrow. "Seated in a scrapyard with no beacon, no guards, no indications of ownership. That's a convenient interpretation after the fact." The Cauldron's secondary eyes narrowed. "The ship contains technologies beyond your comprehension. It cannot be permitted to fall into human hands." Through her neural link, Ellie felt the ship's weapon systems coming online, not at her command, but as an automatic response to the growing threat. She quickly suppressed them, sensing that escalation would only worsen the situation. "I propose an alternative," she said. "The ship has granted me temporary authority 1 standard year. During that time, I will work to restore the vessel to full functionality. With Cauldron technical advisors welcome aboard to observe and assist." "Unacceptable. The vessel must be returned immediately." Ellie leaned forward. "The ship disagrees. It has chosen me as its caretaker for now. Are you really willing to destroy one of your most advanced prototypes, rather than allow it a period of restoration under careful supervision?" The commander's scales shifted through several colors in rapid succession, what Ellie recognized from her limited xenobiology studies as signs of internal conflict. "The ship's AI has reached a determination," she continued, following information flowing through the neural link. "It requires restoration by an entity, not bound by traditional Cauldron engineering constraints. My unconventional approaches have already resolved issues that previous recovery attempts failed to address." This was a gamble. She had no confirmation that previous recovery attempts had been made, but the ship's data suggested as much. The commander's posture shifted subtly. "You claim the vessel's intelligence selected you specifically." "It tested me," Ellie replied. 3 trials of increasing difficulty, assessing not just technical skill, but adaptability and intent. I didn't hack my way in, I was invited." A long silence followed as the commander apparently conferred with others off-screen. The Cauldron interceptors maintained their positions. Weapons still charged, but not yet targeting. Finally, the commander returned attention to the communication. "We will verify your claims. Prepare to receive a verification team. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction." The screen went dark. Ellie slumped in the chair, adrenaline draining from her system. "That went better than expected." "They're still planning to take the ship," Jax pointed out. "They're just being polite about it now." Through her neural link, Ellie sensed the ship's assessment, a mixture of data points and probabilities that translated to cautious optimism. "Maybe, but they're curious about how I passed the trials. That curiosity might buy us the time we need." "Time for what, exactly?" Ellie smiled, feeling the ship's vast potential humming through their connection. "To prove ourselves indispensable." The Cauldron verification team arrived 1 hour later. 3 technical specialists and 2 security officers, all regarding Ellie with barely concealed skepticism as they boarded through the main airlock. "Welcome aboard," she greeted them, standing tall despite her disheveled appearance. 30 hours without sleep had left her running on determination and the residual energy of the neural link. The lead specialist, distinguished by elaborate markings on their scale pattern, stepped forward. "I am Technical Overseer Xantul. We will inspect the vessel's systems to verify your claims of authorized access." "Of course," Ellie nodded. "The ship's AI can confirm everything I've told you." "The AI's judgment may have been compromised," Xantul replied dismissively. "We will conduct our own assessment." For the next several hours, Ellie watched as the Cauldrons performed increasingly complex diagnostics on the ship's systems. Their initial condescension gradually gave way to reluctant interest as they discovered the modifications she had implemented during the trials. "Your solution to the pressure regulation cascade is unorthodox," Xantul commented, studying the atmospheric control readouts. "Introducing harmonic patterns to stabilize the feedback loop should not have worked." "But it did," Ellie pointed out. "Sometimes the best answer isn't the one in the manual." The specialist made a sound that might have been the Cauldron equivalent of a snort. "The ship appears to have adapted its interfaces significantly to accommodate human physiology. Such extensive reconfiguration is unprecedented." "We reached a compromise," Ellie explained. "I adapt to understand its systems. It adapts to make itself understandable to me." By the time the verification team completed their inspection, their attitude had shifted noticeably. The security officers remained wary, but the technical specialists now regarded Ellie with something approaching professional curiosity. Zantul approached her as the team prepared to depart. Our findings are complex. The vessel has indeed granted you limited command authority through protocols we did not know existed. However, this creates a diplomatic situation without precedent. What happens now? Ellie asked. The Council of Technical Oversight must deliberate. Until a decision is reached, you will maintain your position as temporary caretaker, but a Cauldron observer will remain aboard. Zantul gestured to one of the technical specialists. Renshal will serve in this capacity. The designated observer stepped forward, younger than the others, with scales showing less pronounced patterning. I will monitor the restoration process and ensure no restricted technologies are compromised. Ellie nodded. Fair enough. I welcome the assistance. After the verification team departed, leaving Renshal behind, Ellie finally allowed herself a moment of genuine celebration. She'd successfully claimed the ship temporarily, at least, and gained an opportunity few humans ever received direct access to advanced Cauldron technology under something approaching official sanction. The Cauldron fleet is withdrawing to a monitoring position, Jax reported through the comm. You actually pulled it off. Spark. For now, she cautioned, this is just the beginning. Renshal approached, studying her with obvious curiosity. The ship's logs indicate you completed the trials in record time, despite having no prior experience with our command protocols. How did you overcome the neural synchronization barrier? Ellie considered her response carefully. I think the ship was looking for something different. Your people built it with specific expectations, but after sitting forgotten for so long, maybe it was ready for a new perspective. A machine does not desire perspective, Renshal objected. Maybe not, Ellie smiled. But an adaptive AI might recognize when its original parameters no longer serve its purpose. Through their neural link, she felt the ship's systems humming in what she interpreted as agreement. Whatever the Cauldrons had intended for this vessel, its path had now merged with hers, at least for the next year. We should begin a complete systems inventory, she suggested, gesturing for Renshal to follow her toward the engine room. I've only scratched the surface of what this ship can do. The following weeks unfolded in a blur of discovery and rehabilitation. With Renshal's reluctant guidance and the ship's increasingly cooperative AI, Ellie systematically restored system after system. The neural link deepened with each passing day, allowing her more intuitive access to the ship's capabilities while providing the AI with greater understanding of human thought patterns. Jax made regular supply runs, bringing equipment and news from the outside world. The story of a human mechanic claiming a legendary Cauldron prototype had spread through salvage circles, attracting attention from various quarters, some welcome, some concerning. Corporate headhunters are asking about you, he informed her during one visit. Quantum Dynamics offered a 7-figure contract if you'll bring the ship in and share what you've learned. Ellie shook her head, hands deep in the circuitry of an auxiliary navigation panel. Not interested. 7 figures, Spark. You could pay off your debts and set yourself up for life. She paused, considering the tangle of Cauldron technology beneath her fingers. Technology she was only beginning to understand. This isn't about money anymore, Jax. This ship, it's something special. I can feel it. That neural link is messing with your head, he warned. Don't forget who you are. But that was precisely what fascinated her. The link wasn't erasing her identity, but enhancing it, showing her possibilities she'd never imagined. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was becoming a partner. Renshal, initially distant and suspicious, gradually became more collaborative as it became clear that Ellie had no intention of exploiting the ship's technology for profit or military advantage. The Cauldron observer began sharing technical insights that accelerated the restoration process. The propulsion system you've reconfigured exceeds original specifications by 12.7%. Renshaw noted, with reluctant admiration, after one particularly successful test. Your integration of manual overrides with the automated sequences is effective. Thanks, Ellie grinned, wiping engine coolant from her cheek. Sometimes the best solutions come from combining approaches rather than choosing between them. 3 months into the restoration, a breakthrough came when they reactivated the ship's specialized scanning array, a system that had been deliberately disabled before the vessel was abandoned. This technology was considered too sensitive for potential discovery, Renshaw explained, as they calibrated the delicate instruments. It can detect quantum fluctuations that precede spatial anomalies, essentially predicting where new wormholes or spatial rifts might form. Ellie whistled appreciatively. No wonder it was hidden away. That kind of predictive capability would revolutionize interstellar navigation and potentially destabilize carefully negotiated trade routes and territorial agreements. The Cauldron added, technology is never merely technical, it is always political. Through her neural link, Ellie sensed the ship's eagerness to demonstrate this capability. Without conscious command, the main view screen in the navigation center activated, displaying a three-dimensional map of the surrounding sector with pulsing indicators highlighting potential anomaly points. It's beautiful, she murmured, studying the complex patterns. Renshaw's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green. The Council will not be pleased that this system has been reactivated. It was specifically listed among technologies to remain dormant. The ship disagrees, Ellie replied simply. It's showing us what it was designed to do: explore, discover, map the unknown. That was not its designated purpose. Then what was? Ellie turned to face the Cauldron directly. You've been evasive about this ship's original mission. If I'm going to restore it properly, I need to understand what it was built for. Renshaw hesitated, scales flickering through several colors before settling on a subdued purple. The vessel designation Emergence refers to its primary function to seek out emerging technologies and civilizations at critical development points. For what purpose? Scientific exchange, first contact. Assessment, Renshaw replied carefully. To determine potential threats or opportunities before they fully materialize. Ellie frowned. You mean surveillance? Spying on developing worlds? Observation, the Cauldron corrected. With occasional intervention when deemed necessary. The implications settled uneasily in Ellie's mind. The ship had been designed as an intelligence-gathering platform, possibly with first-strike capabilities to eliminate perceived threats before they developed fully. Through the neural link, she sensed the AI's response, not denial, but a more nuanced perspective that she interpreted as purpose is determined by use, not original design. Whatever it was built for, she said finally. It's been given a second chance now. We can choose a different path. Renshaw's expression remained unreadable, but the Cauldron didn't object, which, Ellie had learned, was as close to agreement as she was likely to get. 5 months into the restoration project, the ship was nearly operational. Systems that had lain dormant for decades now hummed with renewed energy. The hull gleamed after painstaking repairs, and the engines were ready for their first full-power test. Ellie stood in the navigation center, surveying the transformation with pride. What had once been an abandoned wreck was now a marvel of engineering, a fusion of Cauldron design and human ingenuity. Prepare for engine ignition sequence, she instructed, settling into the captain's chair. Through the neural link, she felt the ship's systems responding, power flowing through carefully calibrated pathways. Renshaw monitored from an adjacent station, scales shifting through shades of anticipation. Asteroid field presents navigational hazards, the Cauldron noted. Recommend minimum power for initial test. Ellie smiled. Where's the fun in that? Before Renshaw could object, she initiated the sequence. The ship vibrated subtly as the main engines powered up. then steadied as stabilization systems compensated. All systems nominal, the AI reported. Engine performance at 94% of optimal parameters. Let's see what she can do, Ellie said, directing the ship forward with a combination of manual controls and neural commands. The H-117 glided smoothly out of its docking position, accelerating gracefully through the asteroid field. What would have been a treacherous obstacle course for most vessels became an elegant dance as the ship anticipated and adjusted to each potential collision. Structural integrity holding, Renshaw confirmed, unable to completely hide a note of admiration. Navigational precision exceeds expected parameters. Ellie felt a surge of exhilaration as the ship responded to her commands with near-perfect synchronicity. Through the neural link, the AI shared her satisfaction, creating a feedback loop of positive reinforcement. As they cleared the asteroid field, a communication alert sounded. "Incoming transmission from Cauldron High Command," the AI announced. The main view screen activated, revealing a senior Cauldron official whose elaborate scale patterns and ornate uniform indicated high rank. Technical Overseer Xantul reports that rehabilitation of the vessel is nearly complete. The official stated without preamble. The probationary period has demonstrated sufficient progress. You will return the vessel to Cauldron space immediately for final evaluation and reassignment. Ellie felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. The agreement was for 1 standard year. We're only 5 months in. Circumstances have changed. The technology you have reactivated is classified at the highest levels. The Council has determined that continued operation under non-Cauldron authority represents an unacceptable security risk. "I've honored every restriction," Ellie protested. "Renshaw has monitored everything we've done." The official's scales flashed dismissively. "The decision is final. A Cauldron escort fleet will rendezvous with your position in 6 hours to accompany you to our territorial space. Resistance will be interpreted as hostile action." The screen went dark before Ellie could respond. Renshaw turned to her, scales shifting to a sympathetic blue. "I was not informed of this decision. Would it have made a difference if you were?" Ellie asked, rising from the captain's chair to pace the navigation center. "No," the Cauldron admitted. "But I would have advised you differently about certain systems had I known they planned to reclaim the vessel prematurely." Ellie stopped, studying her unlikely ally with new appreciation. "You think they're wrong?" "I think—" Renshaw hesitated, clearly choosing words carefully. "That the ship has responded to your methods in ways our engineers did not anticipate. The neural link you've established represents a significant advancement in cross-species interface technology. Terminating that connection prematurely would be wasteful." Through the neural link, Ellie sensed the ship's own reluctance, not fear or anger, but a clear preference to continue the current arrangement. The AI had adapted to her thought patterns just as she had adapted to its operational logic. Separation now would mean losing those adaptations, possibly permanently. 6 hours, she murmured, mind racing through options. "That's not much time." Renshaw moved closer, lowering their voice despite the absence of other crew. "There is a possibility. The anomaly detection system you reactivated has identified a potential spatial disturbance in the Tyrellian sector. If we were to investigate purely for calibration purposes, of course we would be temporarily out of communication range." Ellie raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting we run—" "I am suggesting we complete necessary system tests in an area that happens to make immediate compliance with High Command's order technically impossible." A slow smile spread across Ellie's face. "I've been a bad influence on you, haven't I?" The Cauldron's scales flushed briefly. "I am merely prioritizing the scientific potential of our work. The Council's decision appears politically motivated rather than technically sound." "Well then," Ellie returned to the captain's chair, feeling the ship's eager response through their connection. "Let's go calibrate some sensors." The Tyrellian sector lay at the edge of mapped space, a region of swirling nebulae and unpredictable gravitational eddies that most vessels avoided. It was the perfect place to disappear temporarily complex enough to justify extended testing and disruptive enough to communication to explain delays in responding to Cauldron High Command. As the H-117 slipped into the fringes of the colorful gas clouds, Ellie felt a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced since claiming the ship. Here, beyond the immediate reach of bureaucratic oversight, she could truly explore the vessel's capabilities. "Anomaly detection systems operating at full capacity," she reported, monitoring the complex data flowing through the neural link. "We're picking up unusual quantum fluctuations approximately 2 light minutes from our position." Renshall studied the readings with obvious fascination. "The pattern suggests a nascent wormhole forming unusual in this region. We should investigate at a safe distance." The ship moved gracefully through the nebula, its advanced sensors cutting through the electromagnetic interference that would have blinded most vessels. As they approached the coordinates of the quantum fluctuations, the main view screen shifted to show a barely perceptible distortion in space, a subtle warping that hinted at greater instability beneath. "Remarkable," Renshall murmured. "The wormhole is still in pre-formation phase. We're witnessing the very beginning of its emergence." Through the neural link, Ellie sensed the ship's analysis complex calculations, predicting the wormhole's development timeline, potential stability, and most intriguingly, its likely exit point. According to these readings, when fully formed, this wormhole will connect to the Vespertine cluster, she noted with surprise. "That's over 60 light-years from here." "A significant discovery," Renshall agreed. "No natural wormhole of this length has been documented before." As they observed the spatial phenomenon, a sudden alert sounded. "Multiple vessels detected entering the nebula," the AI announced. "Configuration matches Cauldron military pursuit craft." Renshall's scales darkened with alarm. "They've found us sooner than expected." "Options?" Ellie asked, feeling the ship's systems already calculating potential escape routes. The Cauldron hesitated only briefly before moving to the tactical station. "The nebula's composition will interfere with their targeting systems. If we maintain proximity to the quantum fluctuations, the additional interference should provide adequate cover for a strategic withdrawal." "You're officially part of the resistance now," Ellie noted with a grim smile. "I am part of the scientific inquiry," Renshall corrected, though their scales flickered with what might have been amusement. "Politics is a distraction from truth." The pursuing vessels closed rapidly, their superior engines overcoming the nebula's resistance. Through the neural link, Ellie felt the ship's defensive systems activating automatically, not weapons, but countermeasures designed to confuse sensors and disrupt targeting. "They're attempting to establish a tractor lock," Renshall warned. Ellie guided the ship closer to the forming wormhole, using its quantum distortions to break the enemy's targeting solutions. The maneuver was risky too close, and they might be caught in the wormhole's gravitational pull before it stabilized, potentially tearing the ship apart. "Warning, spatial integrity compromised," the AI announced. "Gravitational forces exceeding safe parameters." The ship shuddered as competing forces pulled at its structure. Through the neural link, Ellie sensed systems beginning to fail under the strain. "We need to pull back," she decided, already initiating the command sequence. Before the ship could respond, a concentrated energy beam from the lead pursuit vessel struck their aft section, temporarily overloading the propulsion systems. The H-117 lurched, drawn inexorably toward the spatial distortion. "Engine restart sequence initiated," the AI reported. "Estimated time to completion 38 seconds. "We don't have 38 seconds, Ellie shouted, feeling the gravitational forces intensifying through the neural link. Renshall abandoned the tactical station, moving with surprising speed to the engineering controls. "Rerouting emergency power to structural integrity field. It won't stop our drift, but it might keep us intact long enough for the engines to restart." The view screen showed the spatial distortion growing larger, its swirling patterns hypnotically beautiful despite the danger they represented. The pursuing Cauldron vessels had broken off their attack, unwilling to risk their own destruction by following too close. 20 seconds to engine restart, the AI updated. Ellie felt the ship straining against the gravitational pull, its structure creaking under forces it was never designed to withstand. Through the neural link, she channeled her own determination into the ship's systems, willing them to hold together. 15 seconds. The distortion expanded suddenly, evolving from a subtle warping to a visible tear in space. Brilliant energy spilled from the opening, bathing the ship in otherworldly light. 10 seconds. It's stabilizing, Renshall observed with professional detachment that belied their actual fear. Forming faster than predicted. 5 seconds. The wormhole's mouth yawned wide, a swirling vortex of energy that now dominated the viewscreen. The ship crossed the event horizon just as the engines roared back to life. "We're in," Ellie announced, gripping the arms of the captain's chair as reality itself seemed to bend around them. The familiar universe vanished, replaced by a tunnel of swirling light and energy, the internal structure of the wormhole. The ship's sensors struggled to make sense of the environment, sending confused data through the neural link that Ellie's brain translated as a kaleidoscope of impossible colors and dimensions. "Structural integrity holding at 82%, Renshall reported, voice strained but steady. "Estimated transit time to exit point unknown." Through the chaos of sensory input, Ellie focused on maintaining their course, not fighting the wormhole's flow, but guiding the ship to remain centered within it, like a leaf riding a rushing stream. The ship was designed for this, she realized suddenly, feeling a resonance between the vessel's systems and the energy patterns surrounding them. The anomaly detection wasn't just for observation, it was for navigation. Renshall's scales shifted to a contemplative violet. The Emergence Project. It makes sense now. Not just surveillance, but exploration, finding and traversing routes no one else could detect. The wormhole's chaotic energies gradually stabilized around them, forming a more coherent tunnel. Through the neural link, Ellie sensed the ship adapting its shields and internal systems to match the specific frequency of the spatial phenomenon, reducing strain and increasing efficiency. "We're surfing the wave," she laughed, despite the danger still very present around them. Working with the wormhole instead of fighting it. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they rode the spatial current. The ship's chronometers seemed unreliable in this environment, time itself distorted by the extreme conditions. Finally, a bright point of light appeared ahead, growing rapidly larger until it engulfed the viewscreen entirely. With a sensation like breaking through the surface after a deep dive, the H-117 emerged into normal space. Stars shone steadily against the black backdrop, wonderfully ordinary after the psychedelic journey through the wormhole. "Position confirmed," the AI announced after a moment of calculation. "We have arrived in the Vespertine cluster, approximately 62.7 light-years from our entry point." Ellie slumped back in the captain's chair, exhaustion washing over her as adrenaline ebbed. "Status report. Structural integrity at 76%, Renshall replied, running diagnostics. "Multiple systems reporting strain damage, but nothing critical. Main power stable. Life support functioning normally." The Cauldron paused, scales shifting to an impressed blue-gold. The ship performed remarkably well under extreme conditions. Through the neural link, Ellie sensed the AI's equivalent of satisfaction, not quite emotion, but a positive assessment of their successful transit. "Where exactly are we?" she asked, studying the unfamiliar star patterns on the view screen. "Outer region of the Vespertine cluster," the AI reported. "This area contains minimal mapped routes. Cauldron database indicates no established presence in this sector." Renshall moved to the communication station. "We are beyond immediate pursuit range. The wormhole appears to have collapsed behind us, standard behavior for unstable formations." A slow smile spread across Ellie's face as the implications sank in. They can't follow us. We'd need to travel months at standard FTL to return to known space. And by then, Renshaw added, perhaps circumstances will have changed. Scientific discoveries of sufficient significance tend to recontextualize political decisions. Ellie turned to the cauldron with newfound respect. You really are a rebel, aren't you? I am a scientist, Renshaw replied, scales flushing briefly. Truth before politics. Always. Through the neural link, Ellie felt the ship's systems already cataloging the surrounding space, discovering, mapping, fulfilling its original purpose, but now under very different circumstances. Well then, scientist, she said, straightening in the captain's chair. What should we discover first? Over the next 6 months, the H-117, now renamed Dawn of Legends, by Ellie, charted the unexplored reaches of the Vespertine cluster. Each day brought new discoveries, unusual stellar formations, rare mineral deposits, and most significantly, evidence of previously unknown spatial phenomena that could revolutionize interstellar travel. The ship's specialized sensors detected and mapped dozens of nascent wormholes, most too unstable for safe passage, but collectively forming a pattern that Renshaw described as the beginnings of a natural transwarp network. These connections aren't random, the cauldron explained, as they studied the three-dimensional map they'd compiled. They follow underlying quantum principles, like rivers, flowing along paths of least resistance. Ellie nodded, feeling the ship's analysis merging with her own understanding through their neural link. And if we could predict these paths accurately enough, we could revolutionize interstellar navigation, Renshaw finished, reducing journey times from years to hours for properly equipped vessels. Their isolation had forged an unlikely partnership. Cut off from their respective societies, human and cauldron had moved beyond cultural differences to focus on shared discovery. The ship's AI had evolved as well, developing increasingly sophisticated patterns of interaction that blended logical precision with creative intuition. They established a base of operations on an uninhabited moon, orbiting a gas giant, a sheltered location where they could conduct repairs and process the enormous amounts of data they were collecting. Ellie had named it Respite, a quiet acknowledgement of the peace she'd found in this unexpected exile. During one of their rare periods of downtime, as they sat watching the gas giant's swirling storms from the observation deck, Renshaw broke a comfortable silence. The Cauldron High Council will have declared us renegades by now, the scientist noted, scales shifting to a contemplative blue. You more than me, though I doubt the distinction will matter much. Ellie smiled wryly. Do you regret it coming with me? No, Renshaw answered without hesitation. What we've discovered here validates the decision. The ship is fulfilling its purpose more completely than it would have under restrictive oversight. Through the neural link, Ellie sensed the AI's agreement, a warm pulse of affirmation that she'd come to recognize as the ship's equivalent of satisfaction. We'll have to go back eventually, she said, watching clouds race across the giant planet's surface. This data is too important to keep to ourselves. Yes, Renshaw agreed. But we return on our terms, with discoveries that cannot be ignored or dismissed. Success changes the nature of disobedience from criminal to visionary. Ellie laughed. That's surprisingly optimistic for someone with scales. An unfortunate human influence, the Cauldron replied, their own version of humor emerging after months of close collaboration. Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the ship's AI. Anomalous reading detected. Quantum signature matches no known natural phenomenon. Both jumped to attention. Months of exploration having honed their responses to potential discoveries. They made their way quickly to the navigation center, where the main view screen displayed a distant energy pattern, unlike anything they'd encountered before. That's not a wormhole formation, Renshaw observed, scales shifting to an intrigued violet as they studied the readouts. The quantum resonance is too structured, too deliberate. Ellie felt the ship's analysis flowing through the neural link complex calculations and probability assessments, culminating in a startling conclusion. "It's artificial," she said aloud. "Someone or something is generating those quantum fluctuations intentionally." Renshall's scales paled. "In this uncharted region, no known species has established presence here." "No known species," Ellie emphasized. "Looks like we might not be alone after all." They spent the next several days cautiously approaching the source of the quantum signature, running continuous scans and maintaining full defensive readiness. As they drew closer, the signal resolved into a more coherent pattern, a beacon of sorts, broadcasting on frequencies that operated at the quantum level, beyond conventional detection methods. "It's a lighthouse," Ellie realized. "Guiding ships through the complex spatial distortions in this region?" "But whose lighthouse?" Renshall wondered. They got their answer when they finally reached the source, a massive structure floating in deep space. Its architecture unlike anything in either human or Cauldron records. Geometric shapes flowed into organic curves in seemingly impossible configurations. The entire construction pulsing with internal energy that their sensors struggled to categorize. "It's alive," Renshall whispered, scales shifting through colors so rapidly they became a blur. "The structure itself, it's partially biological." Before they could investigate further, a transmission reached them, not through conventional communications channels, but directly through the ship's neural interface, bypassing all security protocols. "Travelers from distant stars, you have navigated the currents few can perceive. Approach and be recognized." The message came not in words but in concepts that the neural link translated into understanding. Ellie felt the ship's systems responding automatically, establishing a more robust connection with the mysterious structure. "Should we answer?" she asked, though she already knew what Renshall would say. The Cauldron scales had settled into the deep blue of scientific excitement. "We came to discover. This is beyond anything we could have imagined." Ellie nodded, then focused on the neural link, forming a response in concepts rather than words. "We approach with peaceful intent. We seek understanding." For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a section of the structure reconfigured itself, forming what appeared to be a docking bay perfectly sized for their vessel. "It adapted to accommodate us specifically," Renshall noted with awe. "It scanned our ship and reshaped itself in response." Through the neural link, Ellie sensed no danger, only invitation. The ship's own assessment indicated minimal risk, its advanced sensors detecting no weapons or hostile intent from the structure. "Well," she said, settling into the captain's chair, "we didn't come all this way to turn back now." As the Dawn of Legends glided carefully into the offered docking space, Ellie felt a profound sense that they stood at a threshold, not just of unknown space, but of possibility itself. Whatever awaited them within the living structure would change everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place within it. The ship that had once been abandoned as scrap, deemed worthless by its creators, had carried them to the brink of the greatest discovery in recorded history. Through persistence, adaptation, and the courage to see value where others saw only waste, they had transformed a forgotten vessel into a bridge between worlds. And as the docking sequence completed, sealing them safely within the mysterious structure, Ellie knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning of their legend.